It sounds like I have sound. Franco, can you hear me? Okay. Good. How are you guys? Making sure we have sound here. Yeah, is it that we're just waiting for Sam?
Chair use, can you hear me? Everyone is here and we're ready to start.
Bear with us, Patrick. We're figuring some audio out.
Um, Patrick, can you say something again? Okay. Yeah, I guess the problem is the audio in the room, that we can only hear you guys through Julie's laptop rather than through the room speakers. But it's probably good enough to get started if we don't want to wait, huh? I don't know.
I did. How's that? Nope, still happening.
It's all right with you? Oh, don't, it's just Jerry, you, thank you.
Over here.
Perfect.
Here we go. I think we're good.
You think we're good? Patrick, can you say something one more time? No, we can't hear him at all.
Patrick, will you talk now? Okay, we can hear you now too. How about Patrick? Can you talk now? It's not coming through the room. I just walked over.
Very live. You don't have to get very close. I'm used to getting microphones.
Music? I'm not in the meeting virtually. Let me go look at Julie's laptop. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're not getting any music on this end.
No, I don't hear it either. She says it's from Open Signal. I'm not too sure what that means.
Oh, it says it's fixed.
No, we're ready. Maybe.
Do. Hey, Sam, I think we should just go ahead and get started while Julie continues to try to fix the audio, but I think it's good enough for us to get started. Or, I'm sorry, Chair Hughes, not Sam.
Okay, I guess the only thing to confirm is that the captioner can hear me talking, so they can
On the thing, show broadcast feed.
Click that one.
Yeah, the captioner said,
There
I'm
we
ready
go.
to go in the chat.
Okay, thank
So
you, Sharon.
All right, well, we'll get moving and let us know if you don't hear comments and we'll keep back in. Okay, we're back to item number. Lotus said she's okay. Any other comments, changes, or? Guess I'll make a motion to approve the November 18th, 2025 minutes. Need a second?
Second.
Have a second. And Julie, did you want to do that? Pull for the room?
Yes, I would. Thank you. When I call your name, please vote if you'd like to approve the minutes. Chair Hughes. Trustee Stoffel. Trustee McLeod. Trustee McLowry.
Aye.
Trustee Kramer.
Aye.
Passed. Go to action item number 1, the adoption of the 2026 to 27 budget.
right, I think that's me. Do we need public comment? There's nobody signed up, right?
There's
Okay.
none.
No public comment. All right, so we're still struggling with the in-room audio a bit. So Chair, everyone who's not physically here in the room, if you have a question, just pipe up, shout over the top of me as we go along. Julie's gonna share the presentation. Do you want me to guide you to it, Julie?
Yeah, no, I've got it. It's,
You got it? Okay.
Yeah, something changed.
you want me to help you pull it up from?
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
It did on my screen. Okay. There we go.
Oh, there you go, you got it. Okay. That's right. Trustee McClower just said, it's okay. He deals with real emergencies.
No big deal.
We can get through a PowerPoint emergency, right? Hey, if worse came to worse, I could do this without slides, I'm pretty sure. All right, so today I'm going to present to you all the recommended budget for 26-27, like I usually do in January. It's been prepared by the finance team for your consideration. We always do this in January. It seems a bit early, but that's so that we stay synced up with the citywide budget process, which we do participate in. But a reminder that FPDR is the only city bureau where authority to adopt the budget does not lie with city council, it lies with you guys. So you are the final say over the FPDR budget. And I was just saying before the meeting, this is the first time in a long time that everyone on the board has been through a budget process. So hopefully I don't have to explain quite as many things as usual. But that said, if there's anything you don't understand, if anything's unclear, just pipe up. You can interrupt me, ask questions as we go along. So first I'm gonna walk you through the recommended budget, focusing mostly on the big drivers, like what's changed, what's stabilizing, what risks keep your finance team awake at night, how we're managing those risks. Then second, we'll consider any motions to amend what staff put together, if the board wants. And then finally, we'll have a motion to adopt, either with or without amendments. So before I launch in, I just want to talk about the other documents that are in your binders. In addition to this presentation, you'll see what we call a program report. That gives you a view of the budget by major program area with description of the programs and some numbers and some performance measures. It's sort of cobbled together because the city budget software is not up and running for that report yet, so it might not look quite as pretty as normal. And then behind that, you'll see the full 5-year financial plan, that very long, wordy document that kind of goes over the entire 5-year forecast that I think you're all used to seeing. So lots of additional material in there if you can't sleep tonight. All right, going on to the next slide. So let's start with the full budget picture before we start going through some of the components. You can't make it go to the next slide. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
So this slide gives you that high-level view. It's where I hit you with a bunch of numbers all at once. Where the fiscal year end 27, which is the fiscal year 2026-27 budget that we're recommending, you can see how that lands compares to the current year projection and prior year actuals. You may be stunned to see we only need $353 next year. No, this is a good time to point out that this slide is entirely in millions, so that's 353 million next year. So just to orient everyone, resources or revenues are on the top, requirements, expenditures are on the bottom. The second to last column is the staff recommended budget. And then in the preceding columns, you can see actual revenues and expenses for fiscal year end 25, which is the most recent year that we have full expenses for, and or full actuals for, I should say, and what we have budgeted in the current year, fiscal year end 26, and what is projected in the current year in fiscal year end 26. And Julie, I wonder if it would make sense for you to mute your laptop while I'm talking, because it's so echoey, huh, in the room. Sorry, guys.
It is muted, but I'll have to mute the meeting. My laptop is muted, so I'll just mute.
Oh,
I'll
but
mute
if you
the-
mute the meeting, then will they be able to hear me?
Well, I think they'll be able to hear you, but I'll have to unmute it when they talk.
Yeah, you'll have to unmute when they talk.
Okay.
Let's give that a whirl.
Oh, I went too far.
Okay, so I'm just gonna keep going for now. And then we also show the
Real quickly,
percentage.
just interrupt. So if they want to say something, they'll have to raise their hand, and you'll have to just notice it on the screen to get that.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
That sounds like a good idea, because I think the echo is gonna drive everyone in this
Yeah,
room
it's a little
I
rough.
don't know how you're doing it.
insane in a short matter of time.
Okay. There we go.
Okay. Okay. So if folks who are not physically in the room, if you have a question, put your hand up, either physically or or using the little icons. So you can also see the percentage change from what we project for the current fiscal year compared to what we're recommending you budget for next year. That's in the very last column. So you can definitely see above average growth in several areas. And as we go through the presentation, I'm going to try to separate out what's structural change from what's, year to year, normal year to year noise. And then along the bottom, you'll see the total budget after we take out the cash flow borrowing. That's because the cash flow borrowing, it's always borrowed and repaid in the same fiscal year. So if we included it, artificially inflates the size of the budget. So you can see it without that borrowing. And then that very last line shows what you can kind of think of as our operating expenses. Like if we were a general fund bureau and we didn't live in our own fund, this is what our budget would look like. It takes out all this sort of expenses associated with living in our own fund, like contingency and general fund overhead, things like that. So that is the most numbers I will make you look at on one page. If you want to see even more numbers, on page 3 of that 5-year forecast document is a 5-year version of this, if you really want to go crazy. All right, moving on to the next slide. So before we start digging into all the various components of the budget, you may recall that I like to rewind to 1 year ago and revisit some of the major things that we talked about last year and see how those things turned out. Was I full of rubbish last year? Last year, we flagged declining RMV, real market value, talked about how we were expecting kind of a pause in retirements and forecast growth, and also talked about the increasingly large and real-time impacts that operational and financial decisions made at the police and fire bureaus are now having on our budget, which is, as I think Trustee McLeod pointed out last year, that's the consequence of becoming a pre-funded plan. You feel the impacts of things right away. There's no delay. So let's just revisit those 3 topics. First, FPDR's RMV tax rate. It did climb more than we had mapped out before real market value stopped growing in fiscal year 23-24, but it wasn't as bad as we feared it would be a year ago. So essentially RMV declined less than projected, but the city economist now expects it to bottom out later than he thought it would last year. If anybody's seen his general fund forecast, which is on the city's website, it's a really great macroeconomic, overview for the city of Portland's situation. He's fantastic. So last year, the city economist was projecting that RMV would maybe decline by 6% over the last 2 years, but it's only declined 2.8% over the last 2 years. So that's the good news. And that's the reason really that our current year RMV rate is coming in at 145 versus the 147 we expected last year. The kind of bad news is that the city economist doesn't think RMV has bottomed out yet. He expected that to happen this year, but the complexities of the downtown office space with the staggered leases and the differing terms and the expiring, he thinks will bottom out next year now and then resume growth in RMV in the following year. So that would be in fiscal year end 28 to resume growth. So that's the bottom line. Not as bad as we thought, but taking longer than we thought to get to the bottom. But he's very excited to see the sales going through of downtown properties who then are not carrying negative liabilities anymore, and they'll potentially start reinvesting in the properties. So that is where we just have to get to before we can really start recovering RMV, because it's dragging down RMV across the whole city. Second, when we talk about sort of this pause, as we predicted a year ago, retirements did essentially pause during the last year, which means that ongoing transition from our pay-go plan to our pre-funded plan sort of paused too. It did not pause as much as we expected with respect to PERS contributions, so I'll talk about that some as well. But we only have had 33 retirements since November of 2024, which was the last 27 paid 8-month. The pension population this year is just flat. It's like 2,100. So deaths and new retirements are just canceling each other out. So that helps stabilize pension costs temporarily. Pension costs we think they're only going to increase like less than 3% this year as compared with the prior year. So essentially we've had a full pause in the pay-go part. However, we have had 84 new FPDR3 hires since November 2024, so we just didn't expect police to make as much progress as they did in filling their vacancies. So that's good news for them. But that did mean that PERS contribution costs, they slowed down, but they didn't fully pause. We think they're going to increase about 16% this year. So that's, a slight slowdown in the pre-funded expenses, not really a full-on pause, but full-on pause in the pay-go expenses. And then we have seen, perhaps related to that, reduced overtime spending at both police and fire. So maybe getting those vacancies filled is helping them with their overtime spending. And we do have to make PERS contributions on overtime spending, so we care about that. And finally, just, as we talked about last year, the further along we get in this transition to a pre-funded plan, the more we get our budget gets buffeted around by the financial and operational decisions that are made by the city in relation to police and fire. Right now, FPDR3 members are about 2/3 of the workforce. Fortunately, we just didn't have any big budget or financial changes at the city in the last year, so there's nothing that we have to absorb in the current year. And in fact, the work that has been done to rein in overtime has had a positive impact. We've saved some money on that, making PERS contributions on smaller overtime spending. But I don't expect that to continue to be the case because all 3 sworn labor contracts will get renewed over the PPA contract needs to be renewed by the end of June. Their contract expires June of this year, and then PFFA and PPCOA the June of the following year, June of 2027. So I expect we will start to see some financial impacts from whatever happens in those contracts. And then, who knows what happens otherwise at the city. So in short, when we look back at what we were talking about last year, there were some surprises, but there weren't any budget jump scares. Essentially, things unfolded as we expected with just a few, deviations and variability around the edge. All right, next slide. So now let's go ahead and dive into the staff recommended budget for next fiscal year, which begins July 1st, 2026 and ends June 30, 2027. Total fund expenditures are budgeted at 9.6% more than we expect to spend in the current year. And so we'll get into the details of that growth in the upcoming slides, although I've already been hinting at some of it. But this pie chart just gives you an overview of the recommended budget by major program area. It kind of gives you that high-level view of where the dollars flow across programs. And obviously, pension benefits, whether FPDR 1 and 2 pension benefits or FPDR 3 pension contributions, that is where all the action is. That's the major driver of our costs. So the pie, it gets larger every year because our expenses increase every year, but the relative size of the slices doesn't change much. And this year, it's basically identical to last year, again, because we've sort of paused in our change. Normally, under typical conditions, you'll see that slice for FPDR 1 and 2 pension benefits get a little smaller relative to the FPDR 3 PERS contribution slice, but this year looks pretty much exactly like last year. Also, as usual, administrative costs remain stable and well controlled. Fund management expenses are flat and predictable. Disability costs are more volatile, but they are always in that 2 to 4% of budget range. So not really anything new to see here. But the next 4 slides, we're going to go into 4 of these expense categories in greater detail. So let's go to the next slide and zoom in first on the biggest slice of the pie.
Yes, a quick
Yes, of course.
Just because I referred back to that pie chart several times when looking at the program report and the 5-year report.
And they all look different.
Well, some of them look the same, but they all refer to the four major drivers, and the fund management expenses seems to be folded into the FPDR one and the FPDR three, as far as the percentages goes. And I wasn't sure how the fund management expenses part of the pie works if it's not one of the four majors.
Yeah, so when you look at, can we go back to the pie, Julie? I'd have to pull up the way that the budget office puts that stuff together, but the way that the citywide budget, because they do it consistently across the whole city for everybody, is that they put those fund management expenses in the administration budget. So they shouldn't be, I'm trying to think if there's any pieces of the administrative budget that are in. Actually, yes. So they also split out administrative expenses differently. So in the citywide budget, all the disability staff, which we count as administrative expenses because it's staff, they stick that into direct service delivery and put it in the disability program. The pension coordinator salary goes into the pension program. No staff goes into sworn PERS contributions, and the rest of the staff goes into admin as far as a program budget. But they leave all the fund level expenses, general fund overhead, contingency, all those things go into administration. So it does look like quite a bit different when you look at the way the city budget office breaks things out, because they have standards for how they do it across the whole city. But looking at this presentation, this is how we think of it and how I think you guys think of it, which is that FPDR 1 and 2 pension benefit pie slice is just benefits. It's just money going out the door to retirees, nothing else in there. PERS contributions, it's just money going to, reimbursing the fire and police bureaus for PERS contributions. Disability and death benefits, it is just funeral benefits, long-term disability, short-term disability, medical. It's all benefits. And then that admin piece is everything that really we use to operate the bureau. All the staff, office space, all of that. And then fund management is only general fund overhead, fund transfers that are like required to pay down POBs, and things like that. Costs that get allocated to different funds across the city. So those are part of administration. They're totally out of our control. So we stick them there in fund management. But one element of fund management expenses, the biggest element, in fact, which is in your control, is fund contingency. And that's the biggest piece. I know that is not a perfect answer, but we'd have to pull up all the pieces and crosswalk them to see.
Perhaps we'll refer back to this when we
Okay.
get to the program report.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so just stop me if you're not sure about where an expense lives in anything that I put up there. Please ping me and I'll stop talking and try to answer that. Okay, I think we can go back to the next slide for FPDR 1 and 2 pension payments. So after our 1-year pause, we do expect pension expenses to grow a bit more than usual next year. We are expecting 7.3% growth in FPDR 1 and 2 pension payments. And, on average, I would say over the last 15 years, we've been in the 5 to 6% range. Within that 7.3%, there is actually a decline of 2.9% in FPDR 1 pension expenses and an increase of 8% in FPDR 2 expenses. So of course, FPDR 1 is essentially in the closeout phase, and no new retirees, just deaths and some new surviving spouses. So the 7.3 cost increase, what is behind that? Well, a little bit is, as always, the annual COLAs for existing retirees, which we've included 2% for them, and 3.1% for FPDR 1 police, and 5.2% for FPDR 1 fire on July 1st, 2026. And as always, a little bit of it is just wage growth. New retirees have more expensive pensions. Over the last year and a half, wages have gone up a lot more than usual, which makes sense given inflation. They're up more than 9% at police over the last year and a half, and more than 7% at fire over the last year and a half. But the main reason that growth is higher than usual in this budget is the number of retirements that we expect in May, which is the next 27 payday month. We've budgeted for 72. At staff meeting this morning, our pension coordinator told me she was pretty sure it was going to be more than that. So we were feeling really confident about this 72 budget. But I'm glad we have a healthy fund contingency if we hit more than that. I think she has more than 80 on her interest list right now. So it's very hard to tell until we get closer how many people actually decide to go and how many come out of the woodwork that we didn't know were considering retirement. But I think it's safe to say it will be more than 50. And, we could be significantly more than 50. So, but there are, the interesting thing about this 27 paid 8 month is that there has been a really long gap since the last 27 paid 8 month, which was in November of 2024. And then there's another long gap after this. The next one is in October 2027. So I think that's what's driving so much interest in May. For us, unfortunately, the May timing means that we're going to have a full year of costs for all those new retirees in next fiscal year's budget. So it's just the way the timing fell. So they're gonna hit hard and fast in our 26-27 budget. In terms of the death rate, we expect it to be stable at about 60 a year until the out years of the forecast, when it does start gradually increasing to more like 70 a year. That's just the underlying demographics of the population. It's not that we expect mortality rates to actually change, although they could. And I think that's really all that I want to point out about our biggest budget, the FPDR 1 and 2 pension payments. Any questions before I move on? Oh, Patrick has his, Chair Hughes has his hand up. Oh, we need just a minute for Julie to unmute.
There you go.
Okay. We had budgeted for guessing around 72, you're over 80. At what number does it become dangerous for the contingency fund? Is it like 95 to 100?
That is,
The problem number.
yeah, that is a great question. There's really no realistic thing that would be a problem for what we have in contingency, because later on I'll talk about, we recommend 17 million for contingency. So to eat up that much money, half the workforce would have to retire. So that's not gonna happen. We have enough money in contingency that I'm not concerned. Where I get concerned is overspending a major object category, which is against local budget law. So if we get to May and I would say I start to get concerned at 110 retirements, maybe, I get concerned about that. That's just off the top of my head. And so if we see that in May, it's possible we would ask you to amend the budget before we got into the fiscal year, or to amend it during the we'd probably ask you to amend it at the May meeting, because we would know by then what it looked like. But for now, I feel like 72 is still good. I'm more nervous about it than I was just a few hours ago. That's the evolving situation of this kind of thing. But we budget conservatively, particularly in the pension budget, and we have a very healthy fund contingency. So worst case scenario, we're pulling some money out of contingency and sticking it in the budget. But we can also do that today if you guys want to, for sure, if that would make everyone feel more comfortable. Does that answer your question, Chair Hughes? Sorry, we have this delay. If you can just give me a thumbs up if that answered your question. He's got his hand up again. I'm gonna assume he's okay. Just keep going. All right, next slide. Purse contributions.
Stacy, excuse me.
Oh, yes.
Would you remind us roughly how many Tier 1 retirees there are at present?
Tier 1, actually, let me pull that up. It's like a few hundred. It's fewer than 300. I would have to get, and actually I can do this pretty quickly, so let me just grab it for you. I can tell you as of right now, essentially. Let me just grab the January pension run. We have, yeah, it's really not many. So for actual members, we have only 80 FPDR1 retirees left at this point. And then for surviving spouses, We have whatever 58 plus 75 is. Finance people famously don't do math in their head. 133. Lawyers do, though, apparently, do math in their head. 100 133 surviving spouses.
And the thrust of my question was, at these death rates, when might we be running out of Tier 1 retirees and surviving spouses?
I would have to dig more into the detail of the mortality projections, but I think, I mean, it's a long tail. You know, until we have absolutely no FPDR ones, we're probably looking at 10 to 15 years from now, because there are a few who are young. We definitely have some who are in their 60s. So it's just that trailing off piece. And those people are mostly, the trailing off piece is mostly with people who are on long-term disability when the plan was converted, because they were not given the option to join FPDR2 as all the active membership did. So that's why we still have some young FPDR ones. And so it's a long trail off on that. Good question. All right. PERS contribution. So, I mean, if pensions are like the heavyweight in the FPDR budget ring, PERS is kind of the middleweight, but it's gaining muscle. It's getting bigger. I don't know why I decided to use a wrestling analogy, but there you go. I've never watched wrestling. But the PERS budget is planned to grow about 16% for next fiscal year, which is similar to what it grew this year. But both of those are actually slower growth than we would normally see in this budget. But we do expect PERS contributions to grow 85% over the 5-year forecast period. So it is really getting big. And you can see that by the end of the forecast in fiscal year end 31, we're at like, you know, FPDR 1 and 2 pension payment level at that point. So we're getting there. We're really ramping up to that point. But the really big story with the PERS contribution budget this year, and one of the big stories for the forecast overall, is the fact that contribution rates are now forecast to remain steady next biennium, which has not happened in my career. So I could hardly believe it. So contribution rates, for those of you who don't know, they're set every 2 years, and right now we're in the middle of the current biennium, which runs from July 2025 to June 2027. And the current rate for our population that we cover is 38.06%. And they are the advisory rates. So I guess I should temper my excitement a bit. The advisory rates that were released by the PERS actuaries a few months ago said that we should assume the rate for our population will be 38.1% in the next biennium, which is the same. So that is awesome. Before this, we were forecasting rate increases to 43.1% for the next biennium. So what that means for us is much slower annual growth in the PERS budget and big savings in out years. Flat rates next biennium save us $63.4 million over 4 years. So it's a big, big savings. So it's the first time in over 15 years that there has been a well-behaved PERS rate, that there's been a pause in PERS rate increases. So that's a minor budgeting miracle that I think we should celebrate. But then if I return to my regularly scheduled skepticism, I do have to point out that they are advisory rates, and that advisory means advisory. The actual rates will be set in December and are obviously very dependent on actual versus predicted PERS investment returns. And I need to point out that the rates are projected to rise again later in the forecast. This is more like a long vacation weekend. It's not a permanent vacation, but it is something, and we will take it. And of course, the PERS budget is still growing because PERS contribution rates are only one of the 3 things that drive up costs. The other 2 things are new hires, which we're going to keep experiencing for the next 10 years at least, and then wage growth. So we have budgeted for 120 new FPDR3 employees by the end of next fiscal year, and 340 new FPDR3 employees by the end of the forecast in 2031. And at that point in 2031, we think the workforce will be about 90% FPDR3. And then, of course, we have wage growth, normal wage growth, but again, remembering that this population is younger, still moving through the promotional pay increases. like 60% of our current FPDR, our 3 members still have less than 10 years of service. So they're just now, certainly we see them spreading through the ranks already, but it's really kicking in now. And then they're starting to become eligible for longevity pay and getting those promotions and premium assignments, which makes their wage growth a lot more rapid than in the FPDR2 pension population. All right, before I move on to disability benefits, any questions? All right, let's move on to the next slide. Disability and administration are both really small portions of our budget, but they're obviously very important programmatically and operationally. And Julie, are you able to move to the next slide?
Oh,
Sorry.
is this, oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
the
Yep,
one?
that's the one. So this slide shows our different types of disability benefits with actual expenses from the prior year, 24-25, our current year, 25-26 projected expenses, the recommended budget for next year in 26-27, and then estimated costs just for the remaining years of the forecast. You can see that we expect short-term disability, which is the orange squares, which is known as biweekly around our office because they're paid on the same schedule as active employees. But we do expect that to go up markedly next year. But really, all that is just a return to normal levels after more than 2 years of historically low claim levels. You may remember this from last year. We're sort of in a place where we're not quite sure what to do with this budgetarily because, again, we don't know, is this the new normal or is this just volatility? And we don't want to not have enough money to pay people. So I don't know that it will increase by that much, but we are prepared. So that's not about costs going up a lot last year. It's really just about the last 2 years having been much less expensive than normal. We have seen some signs of a resurgence in fire claims lately. Short-term disability payments for fire employees are now more than for police employees, which is surprising when you consider that fire is a smaller workforce and also has lower average compensation. But again, could just be volatility, it's the most volatile budget that we have. Long-term disability wage replacement, which is the blue triangle. So those are folks, we say they're on monthly because they are not expected to ever be able to return to work and are paid on a monthly basis and usually at a lower rate. We do expect that to go up a bit next year just because we expect 1 or 2 employees who are currently on short-term disability will probably need to transition, unfortunately, to long-term disability. Medical costs, the yellow bow ties, I guess that's what they are expected to just grow with medical inflation, which we forecast at 5.6% annually. And then return to work, which is return to work subsidies are when we reimburse the police and fire bureaus for 75% of members' salaries if they're able to find a transitional duty assignment for them while they recover from their disability. So those subsidies and funeral benefits they're very small. They're expected to just grow with wage inflation since both of those are a percent of wages. We are now to the point where FPDR2 funeral benefits make up the vast majority of funeral payments because the older FPDR2s are now starting to pass away. And FPDR2 funeral benefit is much more generous than the FPDR1 funeral benefit. So we are seeing that impact in the funeral budget. It's a little hard to see it because it's so small, but it's there. Any questions about disability before we talk about administrative expenses? Okay, if we could go to next slide, Julie. So administration is the smallest part of our budget. Last year it was 1.25% of all fund expenditures and about $786 per participant. You can see from the pie chart that personnel, no surprise here, is about 2/3 of our administrative expenses. Just to remind you, we have 18 positions ranging from an office support person all the way up to Sam, the director. After personnel, our biggest category of expenses is the stuff and the services that we buy from other city bureaus. The largest of those are our fire and police liaisons, our beloved fire and police liaisons, who we pay half of their salary and benefits. Things we buy, both stuff and services from technology services, and services from the city attorney's office. After that, the third biggest is the stuff and services that we buy externally. The largest of those are technology-related items, again, and professional services for the disability program, like managed care organization costs, claims research costs, things like that. And then finally, there's the office lease and the bureau software that is considered a capital investment. So total administrative spending, we are recommending a budget of 5.8 million for next year, which is up about 6% from the 5.5 million we expect to spend this year. And that increase is entirely in personnel. I mean, in fact, internal materials and services is actually declining. I haven't seen that in a long time either. The world is just crazy. And external materials and services are essentially flat. The office lease is up kind of a normal 5%, bureau software up 6%. They're small ticket items. It's really personnel that's driving the increase. And there are two things that I just want to, really the main thing I want to point out to the board is that we have a really crazy 22.7% increase in health insurance premiums next year. And there are people who know far more about this than I do. But the city is mostly self-insured, and the health fund reserves are depleted, I guess, from many years. Actually, you probably know a lot about this, Trustee McClowry. And Chair Hughes, you probably do as well. And the health fund reserves have apparently been depleted by rapidly escalating health costs. And so City Council has mandated this 22.7% increase to start rebuilding those health reserves. So we don't have a choice about that, but that is a big one-time bump. After that, it goes back to more the growth that we have normally see. And the second thing is just to let you know that next year's budget includes funds to fill a disability analyst position that's been vacant all year. So it's a case of like personnel spending having been lower this year because we've had that vacant position that we've been holding. While Kim waits to see what happens with claim volume. So if you want to see a more detailed breakdown of administrative expenses, like a line by line, I would point you to page 15 of the 5-year forecast document that's included in your board materials. And then you'll see every single line item, office supplies and, all that stuff. Yes, sir.
Just, I know this is a ignorant question. The police and fire liaisons, is that Kyle and Tommy? Is that?
Nope, that is a different position. Trustee McClowry and Trustee Stoffel don't get a dime for their service here on the board. They're volunteers, whether conscripted or actually volunteered, I don't know. But we do have a liaison, a fire employee, active duty fire. I think he's an inspector, and then an active duty police sergeant, who are liaisons to work with us and help the members access our services, inform us about bureau programs. Kim actually, their supervisors reside in the Police and Fire Bureau, but Kim works mostly with them in our office, and so she could speak more to all the things they do. But they are tremendously helpful. They, like right now, they work with Beth to make sure word gets out to everybody on the bench. Say, hey, if you're thinking about retiring in May, you got to make sure you have an estimate. You got to make sure you have an appointment. They help us set up and organize our retirement workshops. They answer my many questions about how things operationally work at the bureaus. And I know that they do a lot of work for Kim on the disability side as well. So we pay for half their salary and benefits because they're not 100%. I think at both bureaus, they also do work with, I forget what, Kim. I'm just going to drag Kim up here to say, because I know they work on other things besides FPDR stuff.
Yes, for the bureaus, thank you, Stacy. So for the bureaus, they kind of handle the extension of return to work on the other side for non-occupational. But for us, they are very instrumental in helping placement of members into transitional duty. They serve to help with the flow of information between the Bureau and FPDR, the work status reports, claim reports, new claims being filed and all of that. So they are really instrumental in the exchange of data and information about our membership between the disability team and the Bureau on a daily basis, along with helping with lots of other functions. They give us insight when we're making some changes that affect membership and things like that. So they do a lot of extra work, but their primary objective is just to facilitate that exchange of key information that we need to administer claims, facilitate that return to transitional duty, tracking that for us, and helping us move the members through the disability process.
Does 50% seem like a fair percentage to you?
I feel like that's more of a question for Kim to answer.
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I think so. Generally, I think that because, again, a lot of the work that they do for their Bureau is an extension of, I know they help with modified duty for people who have non-occupational injuries, and they are tracking on that side as well. So I think so. I think that some of the safety initiatives and things that they participate in and influence are more Bureau-directed.
And
Kyle?
just to be clear, they're getting 50 from FPDR and 50 from the Bureau.
Yeah.
So it's still 100%.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right, yes.
yes,
It's
yes.
not like they're getting paid half of their normal wage.
Right,
Um,
right, right, right,
That
right.
would be
But
semi-volunteer.
they're
Yeah.
still an employee of the Fire Bureau.
Yes,
Yeah, they're sort of just splitting the wage. Yeah.
yes.
And I would
All
say
right.
that, I mean, I appreciate that every single time I call them for anything, no matter how goofy,
Yeah.
they run it down for me, you know, like
yeah.
sometimes, like, we can't get this member to cash a $3 check that has been on our books for 3 years. They will drive out to the fire station or the precinct, run that person down, force them to cash their check. Or I know with our pension coordinator, oh my goodness, it's always a scramble on the day they're going to retire. They're like, I'm retiring on the 26th. No, I'm retiring on the 27th. No, I'm retiring on the 28th. And it actually matters for how they get paid.
Yes.
So during 27 pay date months, those liaisons run around cornering people and saying, you have to pick
You have to
what
get the
day are you
information.
retiring. So they are always willing to help. I mean, they
They
literally
are.
set up all the tables and chairs for our retirement workshops,
Yeah.
and there's nobody more efficient than the fire liaison at setting up the fire training room for retirement workshops.
Yeah, they're just instrumentally important on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
They field questions for our membership. They are the first line oftentimes because of their connection to the bureaus. So they are just critically important to the work that we do every day on claims. And we've had a few recent semi-catastrophic injuries. They are going to the hospitals to see the members and making sure that they get the information we need completed, the reports and forms. So very valuable roles. And I don't know that I'm doing it justice on an impromptu, but
Yeah, I was just thinking, not to go too far off topic here, but that, about calls I've gotten from the liaisons, both of them in the last year, where they're in a hospital room with a member's family, and calling to say, what would be the benefit if he were to die, you know, before he retired, after he retired, like getting that information to folks. And because they know us and understand our plan well enough, they're a nice conduit, especially in those moments where you need information quickly and it's very emotional.
yeah, agreed.
I think Trustee McLeod might have a question.
Trustee McLeod, do you have a question?
I'll ask, but continue. My question was just kind of in summary after the discussion about positions that the admin operating budget covers for next year. Was I understanding correctly that the positions budgeted are exactly the same as in the 25-26 year, except for one possible new position in 26-27 and one assumed return or filled vacancy that is currently existing in 25-26. Is that correct?
So not quite. So we have 18 positions, and that is unchanged from the current fiscal year, the prior fiscal year, the year before that. The 18 positions The board added a disability analyst position 3 years ago, maybe. And since then, we've just had the 18 positions. But what we do expect is when you look at our projected spending in the current fiscal year versus our budget for next year, we have a disability analyst position that has been vacant all year, but we did budget to fill that next year. And again, Kim could talk more about that if people wanted. So it's not an additional position or additional position authority. It's just that that position happens to be vacant right now, and we did budget to have it filled for all of next year. Does that make sense, Trustee McLeod?
Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, anything else on administration before we move on? All right, now let's talk about revenues, which is always a lot easier. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, Julie. Where are we going to get the money to fund all these expenses? You guys know the answer to this question. We're going to get it from property taxes. So bear in mind that beginning fund balance, which is the yellow slice of this circle, is really just leftover property taxes from a prior year. So the only thing in this chart, things that are not property taxes, are the small red sliver and the almost invisible navy blue sliver. Those are our non-property tax revenues. Other revenues in the red slice include things like subrogation revenue on disability claims, interest income, overpayment recoveries from prior fiscal years. The little navy blue sliver there that's almost invisible, that is interagency revenues from police and fire, who do pass on to us the pension and disability portion of their overhead charges when they contract out services to third parties, like TriMet or the Trailblazers. But all of that together, the red sliver and the little tiny blue sliver, that's less than 2% of our resources. So the budget and forecast are just in no way dependent on those other revenues or that interagency revenue from police and fire. So we'll talk mostly about property taxes next. If you can go on to the next slide, Julie, thank you. So as I just said, over 98% of our resources come from property taxes. And tax revenue is something that we essentially back into for budget purposes, which my equivalents at other bureaus find mind-blowing. But it's whatever we need to fund our expenses after we deduct those few other revenues and beginning fund balance. And property taxes are going to need to increase about 11% next fiscal year, in fiscal year 26-27, to meet our obligations. So on top of the usual growth that we just see every year that's associated with this ongoing transition from pay-as-you-go to pre-funded, as we've already discussed, expenses are growing a bit more than usual because we expect a lot of new retirees in May. Wage growth has been higher than usual over the last couple of years. And the police and fire bureaus are going to have to hire a bunch of new FPDR 3 members to replace those retirees who will have PERS contributions. I will say the growth in tax revenue is just a bit more than the 9.6 expenditure growth we expect, if you remember that from earlier in the conversation. And that's because we anticipate beginning fund balance will be about $5 million less next year than it was this year. And I'll talk more about fund balance here in a few slides as well. Before I pause, let's take a look at the major property tax assumptions, which are on the next slide, because those are critical to how we come up with the property tax levy. Because we have to turn that property tax need into a levy, and it's not just a straight translation. We have to levy more than we actually need, because we are going to lose some of the levy to compression, delinquencies, and discounts. So lines 3 and 4 on the table at the top of the slide show our assumptions for compression and delinquency discount losses and compares those assumptions to actuals for last year. The assumptions for the future all come from the city economist. So, if you look across the line, you can see that unfortunately both compression and delinquency losses have been elevated in recent years, and that we expect that trend to persist for the next 1 to 2 years, which means that we are having to gross up the levy more to offset those deficits, which further increases the average property owner's tax bill. Delinquency rates do temper in the out years of the forecast, and that's mostly because of its connection to the downtown property values that we hope are leveling off in the next year or so. And compression losses also ease up a bit, but notice that it's expected to remain at least somewhat stronger than it's been in the past, even after it stabilizes in the next year or two. So that appears to be a permanently higher loss rate on compression. Down below, you will see our tax rate, our projected tax rates, which we always talk about both as an assessed value rate or an AV rate, which is the red line, or an RMV rate, a real market value rate, which is the blue line. So we care about the AV rate because that is what property tax bills are actually based on. But we also care about the RMV rate because our $2.80 cap in city charter is based on the RMV rate. So if you go back up to the table above the chart, you will see on lines 1 and 2 assumptions about how RMV and AV are going to change from year to year. So as I already mentioned, RMV did decline last year in fiscal year 24-25. That was the first time that it happened in more than a decade. And it is mostly because of downtown property values. RMV was essentially flat this year, and the city economist expects it to remain flat next year. So no growth resuming in RMV until fiscal year end 27-28, and even then he expects it to grow at a significantly lower rate than it's averaged over the last 20 years. Over the last 20 years, RMV growth has averaged 5.5% a year, and he's expecting it to settle down at 4%. AV has continued to grow, partly because of the nature of the divide between AV and RMV in Oregon's property tax system, but partly also because of returns of properties that were in urban renewal areas that have returned to the city's general tax rolls. So the graph at the bottom shows how those assumptions get turned into these estimated AV and RMV tax rates next year and over the forecast period, and you can compare them to actual rates for this year and last year. And you can see that in percentage terms, I mean, I don't know if you can really see this in the graph, but I can tell you that in percentage terms, the RMV rate has grown faster than the AV rate recently because of that declining or flat RMV, while AV has still been growing. So the overall message of this slide is, I guess, stabilization over the next year or so rather than a rebound, or at least not a rapid rebound. And that is consistent with the city economist's general fund forecast. All right, before I move on to talk about fund balance and fund contingency, are there any questions about property taxes? Nope. All right, we can move on to the next slide, Julie. Fund balance. So before we talk about risk to the forecast, which is the almost last thing I want to talk about, let's talk about how much cushion we're carrying in the fund. So the chart on top is showing you fund balance. The blue line is beginning fund balance, and the orange line is ending fund balance for each fiscal year up on the chart. Of course, beginning fund balance in 1 year is the prior year's ending fund balance. So what is our goal with fund balance? My goal is that we have enough to provide a fund contingency for unexpected expenses or revenue shortfalls. Plus, we need to have some cushion at fiscal year end close each year so that our fund doesn't go negative. So for that reason, we always want fund balance to be a bit more than fund contingency so that we have that cushion. And so that's I'm generally aiming in the $15 to $21 million range, at least with expenses where they are right now. And we actually, this is not a case where more is good. We really don't want much more than that because we don't want to take more out of property taxpayers' pockets than is necessary each year. So fund balance, you may remember us talking about this for the past few years. It's been a little higher than I like as we came out of the pandemic. But we got it back into target range last year when we, beginning fund balance in fiscal year 24-25 was 16.7 million, so that was good. But then it jumped back up to 24.4 million this year. But we are projecting that we're gonna end this year where we want at about 19.5 million, which will give us 19.5 million in fund balance to start 26-27. The table down below shows fund contingency, what we recommend for the budget year and fiscal year end 27, which is 17 million. And then what we're forecasting we'll need in the out years of the forecast. And then you can compare that to our actual contingency level this year and last year. Contingency is like the fiscal equivalent of a seatbelt. I mean, if everything goes well, you don't need it. But if things don't go well, you definitely want it to be there. And our goal with contingency is that we have enough to cover most, if not every single one of the forecast risks that I'm just about to talk about. And for us, we generally wind up in the 6 to 7% of expenditures range, which translates to 15 to 20 million over the forecast period, which, if you're familiar with fund management, is less than most operating funds. Most operating funds want more contingency than that. But our largest expense, which is the FPDR 1 and 2 pension payments, is very predictable. We don't have the variability in big ticket items that some operating funds have. It may be that as we go along in time and PERS contributions become a bigger part of our budget, that we will need to increase that contingency, because PERS contributions are not as predictable as FPDR 1 and 2 pension benefits. But I don't think we're to that place now. So for next year, we're recommending forecast of 17 million, which is 6.5% of total expenditures. And for the remainder of the forecast, we're recommending 6%. I mean, you don't have to adopt the forecast budget, but right now we've penciled in 6%, which is 16 to 20 million each year. So moving on to the next slide, Julia, like, what are the risks that we're so worried about? I don't know why I love slides with dots on them. It seems to be a trend with me. So let's walk through the risks. On this slide, those of you who are familiar with it already know, bigger dots means bigger risks. And what makes something a bigger risk? Well, one of two things, or both. Either the probability that the thing will actually happen and cost us more money, or the scale of the financial impact if it does happen. Obviously, the worst thing are things that are likely to happen and could cost a lot of money. But most of these risks that you see up on this slide, they are present to one degree or another with every forecast, most of them. There are fewer big bubbles on this chart than last year, so I guess that's good. But there are more medium-sized bubbles, so I guess we shouldn't get too complacent. Nothing in our current forecast for risk is a huge red flag. Just things that we need to keep our eye on. Kind of like your strange neighbor, if you have one of those. And then I should also point out that although this slide does cover risks for the entire forecast period, we really focus on risks over the next 18 months because those we will have less time to mitigate, and we would have to manage them with existing budget. Anything that happens further out, we have more time to figure out how to manage it or raise more funds if we need to. The only new budget on here is the citywide efficiency projects and centralization bubble in blue there on the left of the slide. So let me just give you a little explanation of what that is. Currently, the city is in the middle of this enterprise efficiency operational realignment project that's kind of coming in the wake of our new form of government. The current focus is on HR, procurement, and technology services. And they're looking to centralize those things, and they're also looking to save 20% across the whole city in those areas. So that is a major project, and I believe decisions are imminent in relation to those three areas. And then the next phase will be focused on budget and finance services across the city. So why does this matter to us? Well, it could impact our budget with new interagency charges to pay for those centralized services. It could impact our budget with positions moving around or workload moving around. This one, I would say, has a high probability of impacting our budget in some way, but the impact would probably be small relative. It would be small relative to our whole forecast, and it would be in the administration budget. So that is the only new bullet. The two biggest risks on here are the PPA contract and the property tax risks. The PPA contract, Portland Police Association contract, because it expires in June of 2026 this year, and they are also the biggest portion of our membership. So this forecast assumes no wage increases beyond the annual COLA based on inflation, but even small overall or real increases in wages can translate to really big costs for us. Because as we've talked about a lot, wage growth drives up virtually all the FPDR benefits and PERS contributions. The second biggest risk is compression losses and delinquency losses for property taxes. And here, as always, a small change here means a big impact. If you have a 1% change in either of those rates, that's about a $3 million revenue loss. So if you have 1% change in both, then you're looking at a $6 million revenue loss. So this is more a situation where small deviations from projections can result in big revenue losses. And it is a little worse. This is a riskier situation than usual right now, because the normal difficulty in forecasting is just amplified by these downtown commercial values and how they're going to play out, and uncertainty about when they're going to bottom out. So that's a more of a risk than normal. I think we've talked about all the other risks on this slide at some point before, but please let me know if you have questions about any in particular. And I'm also thinking, it's not on this chart, but maybe it should be, is the risk that actual PERS rates for next biennium are higher than the advisory rates. That's another real risk, although at least that wouldn't impact the budget year. And there are various other lower level risks that are detailed in the 5-year forecast document. Risks are at the end of that 5-year document. So how do we manage the risk? We already talked about the $17 million in fund contingency. We also budget conservatively in general. And then I'll just mention we have a little tiny $25,000 contingency that we also keep in the personnel budget in case, because that is an item that lives by itself in a major object category to protect us from budget law violations. But those are the main ways that we manage these risks. And of course, by staying extremely informed as we can be about how these things are moving, so that we know as much as we can as soon as we can. You guys are almost to the end. There's only one more slide. Let me pause and see if there are questions. No, nothing? All right. Oh, yes.
It's a small item, and it's probably a Kim question. The position that has been vacant that we're going to fill for a disability analyst, has our service level been adversely affected by having that position vacant?
We'll have Kim come up and speak to that.
Thanks for asking. As I shared during a board meeting, maybe a year ago now, that position was targeted based on the number of claims that we have had filed and are administering. And when I saw the drop in the number of claims, we just thought we would hold that position to see if it returns to the level that would require another person. So we're still in that wait and see area. In terms of the work before us, we have the staff to manage that. And we're just kind of, again, waiting to see what if we return to the normal claim numbers that we've had prior to COVID.
Are we recruiting for that position actively at present?
No. Well, once we get to a point where we're, ready to hire for that, we will do the recruitment.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Trustee McLeod, do you have a question?
I do.
Okay. She is now. Go ahead.
Okay, great. I had a question back to the PERS 3 contribution level projected to remain essentially static for the next biennium.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of worries me a little bit. It is a nice relief. It serves to balance some other increases that you're absorbing. It does worry me. What kind of detail did they provide about that contribution rate that could help us feel comfortable that it's not likely to spring up in December or the following year, that you'll find that the next biennium rate is gonna go not from what you were projecting earlier at 43%, but it jumps up significantly to accommodate. What kind of information or background do they use to?
That is a really great question, and the exact kind of question I would expect from an actuary. So they do provide quite a lot of detail in those advisory reports. So they do the rate projections at the lowest level for these advisory rates. So this is like our advisory rate, the city of Portland. So it's not just like a system-wide advisory rate or anything like that. It's down to our level of detail. And they provide a report to PERS that then PERS shares with us that has quite a bit of detail about where we are right now. And then they do try to account for what they think will happen over the course of the next year. And I will say PERS, Oregon PERS actuaries are the same as our actuaries. Milliman, specifically Matt Larrabee and Scott Peppernow are the PERS actuaries, and I know that they are very, very aware that every municipality and state government is forecasting based on these rates. So they tend to be pretty conservative. That said, the biggest, scariest part of the forecast is 2026 investment returns, because that is obviously, the biggest thing that is likely to change between now. And I am more nervous than I usually am about those advisory rates, honestly, because December 2025 just happened to be a great stock market moment. So when, we did valuations based on that, and they released advisory rates, they didn't release them I think they released them in October, but they could see where things were going at that point, and then things have not looked as promising since then. So I do have nervousness about that. And the only thing that kind of makes me feel a little better is that we're not talking about the budget year. We're talking about, this is a new expense that's going to hit in 26, 27. Rates are guaranteed to be the same in 26, 27 because we're in the middle of the biennium. It's just about rates increasing beyond that, so we have time to manage for that expense. But given the impact it has on our forecast, $63 million is a lot of money. And so it makes me nervous to have numbers changing as much as that, even in the out years of the forecast. But it's inevitable as we shift to this world. Oh, you're muted, Trustee McLeod.
Thanks for reminding me that this change won't impact the budget year we're talking about now, but it'll affect the forecasting for the following 2 years. So thanks, that's helpful right there. I'd be interested in seeing some of the detail that they provided to you. Just to
absolutely.
Understand better, if you wouldn't mind, just to better understand their asset smoothing and how they may be taking into account, the higher than expected earnings for the last year, and where their normal cost percent of those kinds of things are kind of impacting the overall contribution rate. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that, that'd be helpful. But I think I'm comfortable with the reminder that the contribution rate for the fiscal year 26, 27 is not impacted.
Thanks, Trustee McLeod. Yes, and I will pass that on to the entire board in case folks are interested. And I would also say that I am sure that Scott over at Milliman would be happy to talk with you personally about it as well if you want to have a conversation. He knows how much it impacts our budget, and we just are lucky to have access so directly to them if we have questions.
Excellent point. That the same actuaries doing those valuations are doing analysis for FPDR, and they wouldn't want you to be caught in the lurch at any point. So
yeah,
that's also very reassuring.
Yes, it has been so valuable to have them be the PERS actuaries as well, especially as this becomes a bigger and bigger part of our budget. I feel like I have great access to getting all my questions answered. Of course, they can't promise me 2026 investment returns, but if only they could. Other questions? Yes, Trustee McLaren.
Just that discussion of the PERS rates reminded me, it's been a while since I've thought about this, but so I may not be getting the actual terms correct. But are you familiar with some the PERS side accounts that is that something that has ever been discussed to sort of stabilize the employer rates for Portland?
So the city does not have side accounts, but many people do, or many employers do, but the city does not. The city, and for the benefit of everyone else, side accounts are used to sort of buy down your own liability and then keep your rates from escalating as quickly in the future. What the city did choose to do in 1999 was issue pension obligation bonds, because that was deemed, at the time, apparently, to be a better financial approach than setting up side accounts with PERS. So the city issued POBs in 1999. I think we're about to make our last payments on them. I feel like they were 25-year bonds. Maybe we just finished repaying them. And so we did buy down our liability in 1999. Not that I'm aware of, has the city discussed doing that again recently? Side accounts or POBs. That conversation wouldn't be happening, that would be happening like in the CFO's office.
But as we are the board that deals with specifically the police and fire and those payments to PERS, could that be a discussion that we have among the board specifically for police and fire? Because the agencies that I know have done it are just fire, not for the whole cities.
Not for the whole city.
Like I believe the Port
Oh,
of
because they're fire districts, right?
Yes. I believe the Port of Portland did that 8 years ago or so, and it's served to really stabilize their rates.
It is, PERS would not allow us, we did actually talk about this maybe 2 years ago, and PERS would not allow us to do it independently because we are not a separate employer. To PERS, we are the city of Portland. But it is not necessarily true that they wouldn't allow the city to do it just to buy down their public safety rate. And that was where we left the conversation a couple years ago. There's also concerns about how then you're essentially pre-funding, you're doing more, you're further buying down, you're further pre-funding, I guess you're buying down the rate right now, trying to get your liability up to that. And there's some legal concerns with the way the charter is written, and I guess Franco might have to speak more to that, about only being able to raise the funds that are required in the current year. So this is what I recall of a similar conversation a couple years ago. So I would say, is it a possibility? Maybe. The city would have to participate. We couldn't do it independently because the city is the employer, not FPDR. But if we wanted to engage the city in those conversations, it would be no skin off their nose.
I might suggest we put that on the agenda for a future meeting.
Okay. You got that, Julie and Sam? And we could certainly bring in the CFO to kind of, speak to that, and the debt manager who talks, who is the one who would be saying what's better, POBs, side accounts, if you wanted to pre-fund that. But then there is the legal question as well.
Yeah, that's out of my wheelhouse.
A little bit mine too. All right, anything else before we move on? Okay, last slide, you guys made it. All right, let me reiterate the key takeaways for the budget and forecast overall. Just to recap what we need to be most, what you should walk away from this with. Could you move on to the next slide, Julie? So first, it doesn't like it when
Here we
Julie
go.
clicks on. No?
No?
Oh, there it goes. Okay. So first, we were just talking about this, the steady PERS rates, they are providing major financial relief in out years, so long as they actually materialize that way. So for the first time in my career, we've got some steady PERS rates, which is really nice. Last year we expected, just to recap, this time last year, we expected to see PERS rates of 43.1% in 27-29 and 50.6% in 29-31. And now we expect them to be flat at the 38.1% in 2027 through 29, and then be at only 41.1% in 29-31. So doesn't save us anything in next year's budget because we're in the middle of the biennium, so we know there's no change in rates for next year, but it does save us that $63 million over the next 4 years. However, it's not certain. We won't know for sure until the actual rates come out, which will be this fall. Second major takeaway, I think, is that the property tax situation is expected to stabilize within the next year or so. which is, as I mentioned, a bit later than we previously expected. We hoped that that would be happening right now. But now it appears that those downtown commercial values will hit bottom next fiscal year, and then that we'll start to see some growth in real market value again after that. But again, reminder, we don't expect RMV growth to go back to where it's been historically when it does resume. And that we also expect compression to start easing next year, but again, we expect it to remain higher than historically. So bottom line with property taxes, the city economist has pushed recovery out a year, but even when recovery happens, expect the new normal to be worse than the past. That's not very optimistic, but that is what we seem to be looking at. So all of that means that, you know, we have to increase the levy a bit more to make up for those extra compression losses, which is another burden on taxpayers as we continue to ramp up to our peak expense. And speaking of ramping up to the peak, I think the third takeaway is really that after a breather year with no real growth in the pension population and pension expenses, and then slower than usual growth in FPDR3 PERS expenses, we are about to resume our bumpy ride to the top of the mountain. Retirements will surge in May. I am confident of that, and that will drive up future costs. So those, you know, let's say 50 to 100 retirements in May. Again, we've budgeted for 72, are going to really drive up pension costs next year in fiscal year 26-27. And then that's really going to drive up PERS contributions in fiscal year 27-28 after police and fire have replaced all of those retirees with new hires and they've hit their 6-month mark where we start making PERS contributions for most employees. So I think those are the three main takeaways this year from the forecast conversation. And Julie, you could go to the next slide where I congratulate you all on surviving another budget presentation. And then ask, are there any final questions or anything that you want me to go back to? Trustee Kramer, yes.
Stacy, I think this is more going back and putting some numbers into the proper category, which I wasn't able to do. If we go all the way back to your first chart, fiscal year 26-27 budget compared to 25-26 and 24-25 actuals.
Is that this one?
Yeah, that's the one you mean, right?
Yes. If we go back to the fund level requirements and the substantial change, I'm confident you covered it, but what category does that belong in?
So actually, there's a good point there. That's something that I did not bring up that I probably should have. So fund level requirements. So if you're asking what category it belongs to, if you look at slide 4 on the expense overview, you can see it's its own category, fund management expenses. But this program overview on slide 4 is the budget net of borrowing. So I have taken out all borrowing. That's why fund management expenses are only $18.34 million on slide 4, but on slide 2, they are $94 million. And that is because I have netted out borrowing. But I'm really glad that you, because it's just artificial, you know, because we borrow it and then we pay it back within the same fiscal year. It's not a real expense. I mean, the interest is a real expense, but the principal is not. And what I want to say, though, about this, though, is that we borrowed $50 million from the Parks Bureau this year, and we've budgeted to borrow $75 million next year, which is a lot more. And there are 3 reasons for that. Claudio, the Parks manager, was just like, $75 million? What do you need $75 million for? But we cut it a little too close this year. So that's factor number 1. Factor number 2 is that property tax revenues coming in from Multnomah County, this is turning into a problem. They didn't get us the money, a substantial amount of money, until January 6th this year. So that's something that the city is, you know, looking into, because that also happened with the general fund, and it's not the first year. That's the latest it's ever been, but it's not the first year we've had a problem with that. And then the third change, I think this is a positive change, is that we're now reimbursing police and fire bureaus for purse contributions every month. I mean, they've just grown to be such a big expense, and we finally got they finally got a good process for billing us going. We'll see if they can keep that up though, because the financial analyst who was doing such a good job of that for police and fire left to become a police officer. I was like, what? No. Can you be a police officer but be assigned to do this as well? So that we used to not have to pay any of those expenses until after we got property taxes, and now we need to pay like a third of our expenses. So that's what's driving that big number. And in fact, I don't know if we'll do an internal loan or a bank line of credit or issue TANs. Debt manager and I just started talking about that last week, but that's a lot more borrowing. So I'm glad that that brought up that point in my mind. Yes, trustee.
You brought up the interagency loan a moment ago. No, last meeting you said that was due to be paid back by the end of this month?
Yep.
It was all taken care of?
Yep, it's all taken care of. We paid it back last month. We wound up, so we paid back the full 50 million and then $637,000 in interest. And I believe we budgeted 652,000. So it was yeah, pretty close. So Parks has their money back. I paid them back right before I said, hey, do you have 75 million for next year? And they may not be able to float us that much. So we'll have to either look to other city funds if that's the case, or other borrowing. Any other questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So if we could go to the second to last slide again, Julie. And now just say this is the time if the board wants to discuss any amendments, if there are any amendments that you would like to see to the budget.
I don't see any questions on the Zoom.
Yeah, I don't see anything. So last slide is, this is where I talk about, before we have a motion to adopt, talk about changes. I just want to remind the board that we typically have to make some minor technical changes after the police and fire bureau's budgets are set by mayor and council to accommodate any changes that are made to their budgets. This year, there could be cost reductions for cuts to police and fire, since this is definitely a cut year for the general fund. And we could have cost increases or changes related to that enterprise efficiency operational realignment project that I mentioned earlier. So those are the possibilities I see right now. But as always, if anything significant changes, either financially or programmatically, I will let you know at either our May or July meeting, depending on timing. And as with last year, if the changes are significant enough, then I'll ask the board to formally amend the budget, as I asked you guys to do in the current fiscal year. But congrats on navigating another exciting budget. It's a real thrill ride for those who really appreciate budgets, right? Luckily, I have a great finance team who really enjoys wonking out about this stuff. Yeah, you don't want to live in my world. It's just them sending me spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet. But so with that, unless there are further questions or amendments, the next step would be a motion to adopt. But let me just pause and see if there are more questions or discussion.
Oh, Patrick, sorry.
So hear us, this is Chuck Hughes.
We can hear you.
Okay. I'm hearing no questions or additional information needed. By the way, that was a very good presentation, Stacy.
Oh, thank you, Chair Hughes.
Okay, well, I will make a motion to adopt the recommended budget as FPDR requested for the 25-26 recommended budget.
Actually, the 26-27 recommended budget.
26-27 and 5-year forecast.
I will second that motion.
Okay, Julie, can you call the roll?
I sure will. I'll start with you, Chair Hughes,
Yes.
Trustee McLeod, Trustee Stoffel? Trustee McLowry?
Yes.
Trustee Kramer?
Yes.
All right, thank you all so much for your attention and interest and great questions.
Thank you, Stacy, and the whole staff. Okay, we're moving to action item number 2, resolution 561, the outside general counsel contract authorization.
That will be me, Sam. So we've got a limited period of time left, so I will move through these, but please ask questions about them as we go through them. So the first resolution we're looking for is 561, is outside general counsel contracts authorization. The Board of Trustees has, for the last 10 years, contracted with Ogletree Deacon to provide independent general legal counsel, legal service on an as-needed basis. The existing contract expired January 21, 25, so last week. FPDR with City Procurement initiated an RFP process to select an outside legal counsel for the contract period of January 22, 26 through January 21, 30. RFP evaluation team is reviewing the responses and will decide soon who in contract negotiations with, since we're still in active recruitment or RFP evaluation. I can't give you any details on who or how many have applied at this point. We're hoping to have a decision maybe later this week, at least who we can start with to negotiate with here. This one has a not to exceed amount of $150,000, which is what we've had before. And it's more than sufficient to cover the legal counsel's time in any special projects they may work on behalf of FPDR. Most of their time is spent preparing for board meetings and listening to board meetings and maybe answer questions during board meetings. And occasionally we've asked them to do special projects or address certain issues that have come up. And that's what adds a little bit more than just the board attendance. We have a couple projects coming up, one being the disability retirement on how it is taxed. And that's supposed to be effective January 2027. We expect sometime here in 2026 for the IRS to issue rules and regulations on how that's administered. And so we'll need help the outside counsel to interpret those regulations. We're also concerned a little bit that direction things are going in the country, maybe same-sex marriage will be challenged, and we'll have to have some opinion on how that impacts us, because that could impact the IRS's definition of marriage, which then will put our plan in conflict with the state and other stuff, so we'll need some help navigating that. So we feel that the $150,000 is sufficient to go through all that work this year. What we're asking this year is for the board to authorize me, the director, to execute an agreement on behalf of the Board of Trustees and FPDR with legal counsel identified by the RFP evaluation team. Questions?
Sam, I just one clarification question. The 150K is for a 4-year period, not per year during 4 years, or is it flipped?
Correct. That's for the duration of the 4-year contract, yes.
Thank you.
We've spent significantly less than that, but we put it up this high because, again, we have some big issues coming up this year that may eat up some council time.
Sam, I have 2 comments. This is Tom Kramer. The first comment relates to the second paragraph, and that is, I believe Lauren is in this meeting, and I hope he's getting paid, notwithstanding the fact that his contract has expired.
We'll make sure we're compensated for this time.
And the other is the tense of the verbs in paragraphs 2 and 3 are off because of the time it was drafted relative to the time we're meeting.
I think this is where we got caught writing stuff up before.
Right.
I'm trying to get to that document. So what was that last one, or were we off on our tenses?
So it says in the second and third paragraphs.
Yeah, will expired has expired. I'm sorry, because we wrote these just,
And the will be conducted that you referred to.
yeah, Yeah, it's still in the process of being conducted right now, the RFP.
Right.
We're mid-process with that.
Subject to that and to any further discussion, which I don't mean to truncate, I would move that we adopt the resolution as revised in these minor ways.
I second that motion. Oh, it's not a motion, that was a recommendation. But if that doubles as a motion to adopt, then
I think so.
Yeah. It was intended as a motion, Catherine.
all right, then my second stands.
It stands, great, thank you. Julie, do you want to call?
Yes, I will. Trustee McLaury,
Yes.
Trustee Kramer,
Yes?
Trustee Stoffel, Trustee McLeod,
Yes.
and Chair Hughes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Number 3, Resolution 562 to amend the online business systems contract.
Yeah, so FPDR is contracted with Online Business Systems, so we call them OBS, to provide computer system design, maintenance, and programming services primarily for the FPDR database. And the database is what we manage all our payments for both pension and disability from, and we retain a lot of information and medical information for the disability claims. And they're key to our whole entire operation of the Bureau. The contract is effective from October 15, 21 through October 14 of 26 this year. The original not to exceed amount of the first part of the contract is $385,000. You all on the board approved a extension or increase in that not to exceed amount by $250,000 to $636,000 in May of 28 of 24. We're asking the board to increase the not to exceed amount by another $180,000 to $815,000. This is necessary to cover the cost of complying with the new Wells Fargo payment process. We've had to, that has required us to move to a very secure database that meets NACHA rules for ACH payments. It's a very complex system. It requires our database to be on its own server, not with other people, and it has an extremely high or impenetrable firewall around it, which is required. And then the phase 2 of this is to put in the direct deposit functionality into the database so we can start making payments, because FPDR wanted us to do a lot of the with processing that they had done in the past. They want us to pre-process it before we give them to it. The reason why this wasn't included in prior resolutions to increase the NTE is we didn't know the extent of this work. We've been essentially without, we had been up until a few months ago without a BSA for about a year and a half. And so we had the retired BSA helping out, trying to get some of this stuff ironed out, and we just did not have it well planned out. And this is a sort of a curveball thrown to us by Wells Fargo too, so it was hard to pre-plan ahead. And this, we are certain that this will be enough money to get us through the end of the contract in October 2026. Just a side note, OBS was recently acquired by CGI, a multinational technical company. We do not know their long-term plans for OBS, so we'll need to decide soon whether to renew the contract with OBS or issue an RFP to start a new contract in October. So that's a decision that we'll have to start working on pretty soon. But this acquisition only occurred a month ago and caught us off guard. So that's some of the issues that we have. And you'll notice in the actual resolution that we're also making note of the name change of this. So any questions on this at this point?
I do have one quick question, Sam. This is Trustee McLaury. So once we get through this work done in October of 26, is that project completed, or will we then need to come back for another several year resolution to finish up other similar projects?
Well, the Wells Fargo project is projected to be completed. We've completed phase one, which is to move into the secure server, or we will here in a couple weeks. And we are expecting to complete phase two in June. But then but we have a long list of enhancements we need, different reports, report changes that we have to do in the database. So it's going to be in perpetuity that we're going to have somebody helping support this system. The next big thing that we have is that the system is based on a .NET framework, and we are an old version of that is no longer supported by Microsoft, and we are no longer getting a security updates in that application. So we have to immediately upgrade it to another version that is covered by Microsoft in their security releases. That will be coming up probably starting in June, but the trick there is can we manage to move this with OBS, or would we have to go outside and have somebody else do that for us? That's something that we have to do. And once we're done with that project, we're going to have to make a decision on what we want to do with our technology in the future. The database was created, I want to say about 2010. It's outlived its ability to do stuff, so we're constantly adding things to it. It's sort of like a rubber band ball. You keep putting another rubber band on the outside to keep going. It's not going to be sustainable, so we're going to have to look for a future of the technology for FPDR. Part of that is do you have a certain application, off-the-shelf application for disability? Same thing in a separate application for pension. That's some stuff that we have to do. So there's quite a bit of work on technology. It will never be quiet. It will always be doing something.
Chair Hughes has his hand up.
Thanks. I think that was Julie. Thanks, Julie. Sam, what are the risks? Because you talked about OBS, you kind of signaled that OBS may or may not be the future for you. And if we're throwing this money to get it up to speed for all the security, and then we have to change, I guess I'm worried how you're prepared to say that OBS isn't around in a year after a merger, but you've just spent all this money to upgrade.
Well, you have to go out with an RFP and have somebody else who can come in and do it. That's a risk that you have. But there are a lot of technology companies that we feel that are out there that could probably do this work. And we also feel that, probably someone can be more local. OBS is in central time zone in Canada. So we have their distances. We've gotten used to it, but it's at times the time zone differences created some issues. We have to look at the future of it, and we got to figure out, does OBS do this upgrade on the .NET framework, or do we bring somebody else to do that? And that could be maybe just a one-time project, and then you're going to need somebody to do the support and maintenance for this application going forward.
Thanks.
And keep this in mind, the discussion we're having, because I've got another point at the end of this that will impact this discussion. Any other questions? Not seeing any.
I think the resolution is appropriately worded.
Is somebody speaking, because I can't hear?
Sorry, Sam, that's me, Tom Kramer. The last substantive paragraph of the resolution, thank you, Kyle, is appropriately worded to say we're authorizing you to administer on behalf of the board an amendment to the contract. All of that makes sense to me. The contract itself has typos in it, but it's a contract between the city and the vendor, rather than between FPDR and the vendor. And I'm guessing it's signed not just by Franco, but by the city auditor. So if they're not troubled by the typos, I'm not troubled by the typos, and accordingly, I would move to adopt the resolution as drafted.
I will second that. This is Chair Hughes. And Julie, you can call the board.
Okay. Trustee Stoffel?
Yes.
Trustee McLeod?
Yes.
Chair Hughes?
Yes.
Trustee McLowry?
Yes.
And Trustee Kramer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, last action item, Resolution 563, amend the OAH contract.
As you know, the charter requires FPDR to retain an independent hearings officer and to conduct hearings and appeals to review of contested claims. FPDR has had an intergovernmental agreement with the state of Oregon Office of Administrating Hearings, which we call OAH, to conduct these hearings and reviews since 2007. Resolution 558, we've got to think back. In January, we asked to increase the not to exceed amount by 300,000, taking us up to 925,000 to cover hearing and appellate reviews through June 30, 2025. You all approved that board on, actually I said it should have been May 27, 2025 instead of the January, my fault for that one. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay, let's start over again here on this one. So in January 2028, you approved a not to exceed amount up to from 625 to 925,000 to cover the hearings and appeals review process on the expiration date so far of this IGA, which is June 30, 2025. We came back in May of 2025 asking to extend the IGA agreement for 4 more years to June 30, 2029, and that would increase the not to exceed amount by 1,750,000 or 1,075,000, and that would take to a total of 200 million on the not to exceed amount, or 2 million, not 200, boy, 2 million on the not to exceed amount. Due to some unusual circumstances, OAH through the Oregon Department of Employment Division failed to sign and execute both of those resolutions. Thanks to Julie, she's been on the phone with them constantly figuring out where are they. So neither resolution was implemented, and this resulted in the termination of the IGA with OAH on June 30 of 2025. I'd spoken with the OAH senior law judge, and he verbally committed to extending the IGA and has continued to provide services to FPDR. So even though the agreement expired in June and we probably had exceeded the not to exceed amount approved by you all in January, they've been working without being paid by us under the intention they fully expect to sign the agreement and we would pay for all services they've given to us in the past. So that's key that, so they're giving us free service, and that's not intent for us to take free. We're expecting them to sign the contract. So OAH finally said that they have apologized for the delay in approving, and they are now pushing it through their system and expect the state signatures within the next 2 weeks. Julie and I are keeping our fingers crossed that this happens. Since the IGA expired in June, OAH has drafted a new amendment that combines the resolutions of 558 and 560. That amendment, which is the one we're asking you to approve, extends the internal agreement to reinstates the IGA and extends it through June 30, 2029. And it also agrees with the final not to exceed amount of the 2 million that you all had approved earlier. So we're asking the board to authorize me, the director, to execute and reinstate and the IGA substantially conformance with the agreement in the tax exhibit A. We say substantially because there may be a little bit more negotiation on it depending upon all the people out to the signatures, for an amount not to exceed the 2 million for a 4-year period beginning July 1, 2025. And we've also asked you for the authorization to me, once this is signed, that we pay for all past due service that the OAH has provided us. And I will let you know after you all approve this resolution, the city administrator will also need to approve it. So any questions on that? This was just, we just could not get OAH to move on the signatures, and it was the Oregon Employment Division. I may have been saying that wrong before, but the Oregon Employment Division failed to sign these, and they're the ones that are the signee form.
So the board would have to approve the contract amendments two parts, one being an increase up to 2 million, and agreeing to the signing of Exhibit A and Amendment 002 and allow you authority to sign and move on. Did I get all of that correct?
Well, all you need to prove is this amendment number 2 that's attached in your board materials, because that includes, to say the degree to the, hold on, if I can get to the right contract agreement. My apologies. Still looking at OAHs. So what this does is it reinstates the agreement, and it means we go true back. It also increases in this the not to exceed amount of 2 million. So all this is done in this A. We don't need a separate agreement.
I have some comments / questions and maybe some ideas,
Yes,
thoughts for discussion. I saw this, when I saw this resolution, it came up for me as somewhat of a second chance, because I remember in May of 2025 feeling uncomfortable with the 2 million, not to exceed 2 million. And I sort of got over that with the idea that the wording is not to exceed. However, the history of it really is clear that for 8 years, 2017 to 25, the majority of those 2 contracts, $625,000 was adequate. And it wasn't until the very end of that 8 years that the staff came to the board to increase it $300,000 to $925,000. The jump to me from $925,000 to $2 million seemed excessive. So if we are at a point where we can make any amendments to the resolution or the exhibit, I'd be interested. If not, I think it would be worth our discussion to address the 2 million, not to exceed 2 million, with the knowledge that at any point between now and the 4 years of the contract, should there be a reason to need, like we did last time, to increase it $300,000, come to the board. And it may be worthwhile for the board to be aware at that point that the, say, $1.2 million not to exceed we're starting to reach that ceiling. And I'm wondering if anybody else has similar thoughts or feelings about this particular resolution.
It looks like a big jump here, but if you take a look at under 558, I don't know if we included those in here, but 558, which is to take us through the end of the first 4 years of this agreement, we're pushing to 925,000. What we're doing is extending the agreement. So what we do is we're adding the $1 million, which covers the next 4 years, to that 925. So half that 2 million has already been spent. And we're only looking at extending the 1,075,000 to cover the next 4 years. It's a cumulative. Every time you do this, you accumulate it. And when this next 4 years is accumulation of the prior 4 years.
The Exhibit A, Amendment 2, second page, Section 4, the previous time this was signed, it was 625, the not to exceed amount. And this is, I assume, coming from OAH, this Exhibit A. And as I recall our discussion back in January, that 625, when we reached the 4-year mark, which was 2021, we hadn't touched it, like you said, it's cumulative. So they just kept that same 625, which lasted for over 7 years. So I understand you're saying it's not that big of a jump, but still it's doubling it, whereas the initial budget, 625, lasted almost 8 years in the previous contract.
Your resolution 558, you pushed it to 925,000. That's the first one you did in May or January of 2025. So you have approved 2. The first one was to take us through June 30 of 2025. And that was upping it to 925,000 through June 30 of 2025. That was resolution 558. And then resolution 560, we wanted to add 4 more years to that. And to do that, we added $1,075,000 to take us up that, but we have to add them together because it's not a new agreement. It's an extension of a prior one. So your not to exceeds have to accumulate. So your first half up through June of 2032, per what you passed in January 28, you approved 925,000.
That is misleading. I understand.
And that is with it, because this number 2 million, I'm going to be in the offices of the city administrator for quite a while trying to explain this, because that's a big number to look at. But so what basically did, we closed out the June 30, 2025 IGA at 925. We're adding 4 more years at 1,075,000 onto it. So we increased a little bit, but it's per 4-year period, almost the same amount we paid the first 4 years on this interagency agreement.
Franco has a question.
Yeah,
Franco.
thank you. Franco Luchin, City Attorney's Office. Sam, do you have I'm thinking maybe it'd be helpful for the board if you had a comparison of the rates that OAH used to charge versus increases that have happened over time. Because there seems to be an assumption maybe that there was a market rate and that maybe now the rate is out of step with the market. And from my recollection of seeing the charges, that is not the case. And it may be that the increase happened later than it could have, let's say, if the state's object were to keep up with market rates. I don't know if I'm clearing anything up, but part of the increase, I think, can be attributed to different hourly rates for administrative law judges and their staff. And then there's also the 2021 time period where, everyone in the world was trying to figure out how to continue litigation during a pandemic. So the numbers there were probably skewed somewhat based on moving from an in-person format to a virtual format and everything that entailed.
Okay.
I recall that you did bring that to the meeting back in, was it May, I believe? We did see that increase. And I guess I just want to make sure I'm crystal clear in understanding this, that while it is not to exceed 2 million, that is essentially an agreement that started in 2017. This is not a 4 years not to exceed. We are not to exceed, but however, as you explained, Sam, we are already close to 1 million into that payment of 2 million. Just so I'm 100% clear on that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to see on this regarding this? And I really hate to say this, but there's going to be a challenge because we finally got the state of Oregon to come in, OAH has come in and say they're going to sign this. And if we take it back, I'm worried that we're going to get lost in the dark hole again. And I know that's not a good enough for, that's a risk if we don't approve it here soon to do it. But if we want to go on and get some more information and revisit this in our March meeting, we can.
I'm satisfied.
I feel like the additional background you provided, that was a great question, Kyle. And I feel like the additional background you provided, Sam, about the timing, about the back-to-back things was helpful in understanding it better. I think I'm comfortable proceeding.
I agree with Trustee McLeod, and I'll move that we adopt resolution number 563 as drafted. with the attached Exhibit A.
I will second. This is Chair Hughes. Julie, you can call.
Okay, Chair Hughes,
Yes.
Trustee McLeod,
Yes.
Trustee Stoffel,
Yes.
Trustee McLaury, excuse me,
Yes.
Trustee Kramer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you have any more questions, want more clarification, contact me and I'll be glad to provide you some information on this so you can see what we've been talking about and how this is working.
Thanks, Sam. Okay, we're moving to information items number 1, summary of expenditures.
All right, that is me again. You have before you your usual summary of expenditure report that goes through December. It is a little bit interesting that the only two things I would really point out were things that we already talked about a bit during the budget presentation. If you look at the property tax line, you can see that we finally got a significant amount of property taxes in December. As I mentioned, those actually came in on January 6th, but accounting was able to post them to December 31st, or, everybody would have been negative. So you can see that money coming in a bit later, about 6 weeks later than normal. And we've already discussed that, but we now have a very adequate amount of property tax revenue, thank goodness. The only other thing I might point out is PERS contributions, which we also talked about a little bit. They are down under internal materials and services, FPDR 3 pension contributions in the chart. You can also see them in the bar graph up above, that we are right on target with those now. We've spent about $23 million of our $58.4 million budget. So that monthly, and you can see the pattern of the monthly billing. It is a little bumpy still as they figure that out and get things posted in SAP, but we are moving more of that money more quickly over to police and fire now with their new billing system. And those are the only things I would really point out as being particularly of note. You don't see that repayment to the Parks Bureau here because that happened in January, and it's obviously still ongoing. Are there any questions? No? All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy. I think it's probably Sam, legislative session and updates.
I think everything else is me, so let me just run through it. I know we have limited time. Legislative update is very simple. The session begins next Monday, February 2nd, and ends on March 8th. Very short session, and it's going to focus on budget and transportation issues. I'll see proposed bills later this week. I do not expect any significant bills regarding PERS or workers' compensation or anything that will impact FPDR. I will monitor the session and let you know if any bills of interest interest for FPDR arise. I'll also provide you with a recap during our March board meeting. FPDR updates, I want to talk to you a little bit. Stacy had alluded to one of the things I want to go over with you, and that's the operations realignment process. In this case, operations are all the centralized functions that are provided by the operations area to the rest of the bureaus in the city. And that includes, they're focusing right now on looking at human resources, procurement and technology services, and later they'll look at the budget and finance areas. So again, these are all from the operations service area that provide services to the rest of the bureaus. So the goal of this project is to develop clear service expectations for human resources, technology services, procurement, budget, and finance. What's happened in the past is that under the old siloed commissioner form of government, you had some bureaus with their own mini HR teams, their mini procurement teams and technology teams, and they'd go off and do things differently than the other bureaus in the city. So what they're saying is right now, we want clear expectations of how these resources and services are provided throughout the city, and they're looking to eliminate those one-offs that some bureaus have. They're also looking to centralize those services and define roles and responsibilities, again, across the city, but they're also part of what by centralizing means they're going to pull a lot of those positions that other bureaus have into whether it's HR, procurement, or BTS, Bureau of Technology Services. So you'll actually see movement of positions out of bureaus and consolidated into some of these key operations area. And so that's what Stacy was talking to you about. They'll be doing that. They'll identify and implement any needs and practical strategies to address all of this work and to identify where more things have to be centralized and also standardized procedures. So what they'll do here, as they move through this project, they'll provide actionable recommendations to inform the city's leadership on how the structure should change, and also how it's going to help the operational areas of the city reduce their budgets by 20%. That's a big thing, and that can't be done entirely without also reducing FTE count. So this is a big project that they're expecting some big returns on. Now, FPDR will be impacted by some of this stuff, but we will not be directly impacted by the 20% reductions because we have our own funding mechanism. They're not looking at us to reduce our expenses by 20%. So the impact on FPDR, and I apologize, I'm going fast and just trying to hit the limit of time. If you have questions, ask as I go ahead. So for impacts on FPDR, human resources functions, mostly timekeeping, and procurement functions will move to HR procurement. We won't lose any FTE on this. As a matter of fact, there isn't, I think it may be because of HR, we have timekeeping, that may be 30% of an FTE. We're not certain. So we're not going to lose an FTE out of this, and it won't impact us significantly. Where we'll see a significant impact is on technical services. Our business systems analyst 3, which we just hired, will be moved into BTS, Bureau of Technology Services. And they will likely in turn embed it into the operations service area, which is FPDR is a part. So we will not have direct access to the business systems analyst 3 that we hired. Matter of fact, it would be pulled out of our budget with it. Now we will get BSA services and talk a little bit more about that, and we'll have to pay for them. So again, that's what Stacy's talking about, some of the budget considerations. And as I understand it, though it's not clear, FPDR will have to request BSA services from the operations service area's embedded team. There's no guarantee that we'll get the services we need in a timely manner or which BSA we will get to work with. I'm having some meetings this week to hopefully get that more clarified, but preliminarily, I think this is fairly accurate. And so FPDRs, myself, Stacy and Kim, and even Sam Clark, who's our BSA that we've hired, are concerned about this. We don't think we'll be able to get the necessary resources to perform our mission at the same level we do now. We believe this will jeopardize our ability to provide our members with the service required by the charter, the administrative rules, and you all as the Board of Trustees. Because we frankly don't have an option to provide less service than we are. So I'm going to keep championing it through. There is no choice. We will lose the BSA position. I'm hoping I can convince the powers that be to have that BSA position embedded in our bureau, not at the service area level. I'm going to be pushing hard for that. I put together some documents that was last week. They're from my view on what this means. The rest that we have, it has Kim and Stacy's view, and a third document has Sam Clark's view. She's done a very good job of outlining what her major role is and stuff. I will send those to you here later today, so you have them. I apologize, we were just pulling them together and didn't have time to put them in the packet. So My question here is, I am concerned that this will impact our ability to, and as we talked about, maintain the database and work through the issues that we have, we talked about before, which is upgrading it to get it to where we update to the .NET framework. We get prepared to move forward with our technology in the Bureau. If we don't have a signed BSA, I don't know how we're going to do this. It's just me trying to make a big case and push pretty hard to get that done. I don't know if you'll have any questions or thoughts on that.
I know this is Trustee McLeod. I know that I do in my past life, responsible for running a retirement plans operation at a local insurance company, where we were responsible for providing the services that the pension area does here. We transitioned from having our own embedded technical and systems staff to a corporate-wide staff, and we had to do what you've been describing here in submitting requests, and they had to be prioritized corporate-wide. And we experienced a distinct setback in our ability to have to maintain our service standards as a result. So I personally am concerned to hear that. What is the timing of this proposed change?
Things are moving at fairly fast paced because they have to have this already as part of the next year's budget. So as you see, we're presenting you the budget. So a lot of the stuff is being decided now. The downside of this is part of the organization of the city to a strong city administrator model, and they inserted the deputy city administrators in there. Bureau directors have been pushed out of the main discussion of citywide issues. So I know a few other people at my level are frustrated because decisions are being made around us, and we're only hearing it after the decision has been made. And some decisions I think have been made and not yet shared with me, and they're going to probably be shared with me later this week or early next week. And I am going to get very strongly voiced on what this is going to do. I just am not certain how much power or authority I have to do it, because this is also the mayor's done at the mayor's direction. It is his project. This is what he expects to be done. So I may be, and that's part of the issue. I'll be going up and pushing against what the mayor has asked us, or has asked to be done.
Okay, two more thoughts about this. Number, then I'm going to need some feedback on one. I'm sure every operation in the city is prepared to argue their unique responsibilities and roles and how everything is different and they shouldn't be subject to this. But FPDR does have a very credible argument in that regard, in that the plan exists for the benefit of its participants, the members in the plan and beneficiaries, and our role as trustees is to ensure that the plan is administered in accordance with the charter and to the benefit of those members. And I do have concerns that that could be compromised. And so I do think there's a unique argument to be made there, and that's important. Secondly, I would like to understand what the trustees could do. Do we have any power that you don't have per se, Sam? If others, first of all, I haven't actually asked if anyone else on the board feels as I do about this, that it is something that would, I remember I wanted to make the additional comment. You made the point that FPDR is not going to be requested to reduce its FTE count because of the separate funding source we've got with the levy and taxpayer revenue that we have. Is that argument not effective with regard to the business systems analyst as well?
Because why it didn't impact us with HR and procurement, we don't do much HR work uniquely solely in the Bureau except for timekeeping. So they'll move the timekeeping out, but most of the other HR work, we use HR resources for that. Procurement's the same thing. Julie Hall here, she is our procurement liaison between us and procurement, but they do the heavy lifting for us and we just provide the information and stuff we need. So that will not impact us on procurement and only minorly impact us on HR. This is the one, it's a big impact. And like I say, I don't have a say. It's already been decided that this is happening, at least the move out of the Bureau for the BSA.
Okay. Thank you. Again, I just wonder, we've just approved a budget or that includes this position in there. And so I'm confused about why the city needs to impact that budget that we've approved, that most of the funds for that are coming from a source, not that doesn't affect them, but nonetheless, other trustees, your thoughts?
And before, would it be okay if I just, Sam, if I just weighed in on the budget piece?
Sure.
Just saying and reminding the board that you do have exclusive budget authority over FPDR. So to your question, Trustee McLeod, about the board's authority in this respect, that the board approves the budget, and you don't have to approve a budget that has these changes in it. That's not what you did today. What you approved today was status quo with the BSA position in our department. This gets a little bit confusing around position authority because positions have to be authorized by both the board and city council. The budget doesn't have to be, but positions do. So it is a little unclear to me, what happens in a situation where the board doesn't want a position moved and city council does. But what is not unclear is that if you don't want to pay an interagency charge to whoever, the Bureau of Technology Services or whoever that winds up being, to have a centralized service, then you don't have to approve that in the budget. How that all shakes out, I don't know. Are we then in a standoff with them? I sort of suspect that I think the mere threat of that is something to, I think it would cause conversations to happen. But in any event, I just wanted to be clear about the budget authority piece, even though I can't be perfectly clear about the position authority because that is a dual city council and board, if that helps.
It does. I am ignorant with regard to the city rules and requirements, so thank you.
I think it maybe should be reiterated. Be clear, Sam, that we did not authorize a budget that includes that position or that money being spent interagency wide. So should that go down that road, I think that ultimately will need to come back to us on some level. And we may end up needing some legal guidance.
And Sam did, this is Lauren, Sam did call me a couple weeks ago about this, and I went through the charter, again, it's been said a couple of times today, thanks Stacy, that the board has the sole responsibility and authority to set the budget. But the city is the one that has the sole authority to actually levy the taxes based on the budget. The city is the one, as Sam said, that is the one that apparently gets to say, where do people live, right? In what department does somebody live that's going to service a particular city bureau? On the other hand, when you read the charter closely, it does say that not only have you, once you set the budget, you're the ones who can authorize the payment of money from the fund's coffers, if you will. I don't think we want to get to any sort of a standoff with anybody or even come across threatening that. But I do think, given the concerns that Sam's raised with me, that it may be beneficial for the board to send a letter, and I'm not sure who that goes to, if it goes to the mayor, if it goes to Sam, who is it that's leading the campaign to do this at the city side? Is it the city manager, or I'm not sure what it's even called these days?
It's the committee of the deputy city administrators are doing it, and they have two independent project teams that are making some of the final decisions, and the deputy city administrators are approving them. It's hard to say because they've done a switch in the city administrators. Technically, the new city administrator probably does, but I'm not certain. You know, this train is well down the track, so he's probably paying attention to other stuff right now.
No, I get that. But to Kathy's point, this board has a unique fiduciary responsibility to the members, as well as to the city. And among its responsibility is to administer the plan. And if there's a concern that by moving this critical person into a pool of individuals and not having the assurance that that person is going to have the necessary experience to actually be able to do the job, that's a significant concern that I think the trustees should be justifiably wanting to get on top of. And to the extent we can have the board voice that concern in the form of a letter to, I guess, the deputy city administrators, if they do it, at least we can't say that they weren't told that this was going to be a problem, potentially.
One thing I'd like to recommend, rather than sending a letter, is we do have the power to call a work session, a board work session that the board would have to approve. And we can attempt to get key decision makers in this process involved and come into a room and explain it to you directly of what they're doing. We all can, or you all as a board can explain why you're concerned and how you feel this is not the best option to go for it. I think that gets you an interactive agreement. So I can say if you want to go that route, the board, I think, have to make a decision to do that, and then you can give Julie Hall and myself the direction to set up that meeting so we can make sure we get the correct people in the meeting for you to talk to.
I think that's a very good suggestion. I think it would be helpful to, for example, I think back a year ago, or what Stacy again had the numbers on the overwhelming number of retirements that were processed in a single year, 1 year, and the different processes and things that I know that are ongoing to try and upgrade. You also you just talked about the work involved in the systems updates that are being done, and there's only going to be more of those. Obviously, the business systems analyst is critical as a liaison, if not hands-on in doing some of that, but certainly a liaison in that, and working to update applications that are using that data. I think it'd be really helpful to be able to talk through some examples of things that have been accomplished by this person and how that's fed into the other staff's ability to be as responsive as is needed by one area that something you don't want to piss off is the safety personnel of the city when it comes to things that really affect their life, health, and safety for themselves. I mean, and that's what this plan is all about. So I think something where we could have a session to, illustrate the importance of that and what this group does would be valuable.
Yeah, I think that's better than any letter could possibly be. It's easy to ignore a letter. It's hard to ignore a room full of trustees that are vested in this. I mean, they're volunteers, right? With a few exceptions, but nobody's getting paid for this job, and you all take it very seriously. The fund has been working exceedingly well with very few hiccups, at least since 2012. We did have some qualification issues that we dealt with that weren't, thankfully it wasn't under your watch, but those have been resolved. And, like I said, everything's been going so well. And it's so critical that the systems we have work to enable that to keep happening. So, yeah, anything we can do to rattle cages and get attention to your concerns, I think would be good.
So if that's what you want to do, I just need you probably need to get a board approval that you want to set up a work session and then give Julie and I a directive to set that up for you.
So does that come in the form of a motion to request that staff schedule a work session to discuss this topic and its ramifications?
Okay, with the appropriate people in the city, yes, I think that'd be fine.
Yes, with all trustees present if possible and appropriate representatives from the city. I so move.
Second.
I've been talking to my computer, sorry, with the mute on. So we have a motion and a second. Julie, you can call.
Thank you. Trustee McLeod?
Yes.
Chair Hughes?
Yes.
Trustee Stoffel?
Yes.
Trustee McLowry?
Yes.
Trustee Kramer?
Julie, I'd like to abstain on this one.
Thank you.
Okay, so Julie and I'll start working on that and see what we can do to arrange time and get the key people from the city to come to the work session. I think we're past our 3 o'clock because we've got somebody else coming in after us and they're going to come in to prep the room. Kyle, you had a question to talk over Kevin Match's recent presentation to the council. Let's hold that off to the next month here so we can do it. I've got some thoughts I'll send to you all via email just as addressing that, and then we can put it on the March agenda.
That's fine. The only thing I'd like to say real quickly is it seemed like there was, at least from Mr. Matches, a sort of, I don't know if vilification might be too strong of a word, but it was very focused on Trustee McLeod, and the city responded to that. I just want to say, by no means should the trustee or Trustee McLeod specifically be called from the city council to go up that you go by yourself. We should go as a full board trustees. Nothing that happened was done unilaterally, and I just want to make sure that my support is loud and clear that that's not something that you're shouldering by yourself.
Thank you for saying that. I strongly agree.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Although having said that, Kyle, I do think that I think it was clear from our conversations in prior meetings that we weren't opposed to having discussions. We just wonder, it wasn't on our plate of things that we felt that we could tackle. So we certainly cannot tackle independently. We would want the support or at least direction from members that this is something of importance enough to them that they want us to invest time in it, and that the council had an interest in it, because without their interest in listening to this topic, any additional time we spent on it was just a waste of time. So if it appears now that the council members are interested in talking about it, I am certainly interested in talking about it as well. I think,
as well, he gave very incomplete information, so we can fill the need.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you again.
Thank you for that. Just next board meeting is March 17th, and we'll talk over the FPDR 2 benefit adjustment. Then in May, on May 26th, we'll follow up on the benefit adjustment if needed. And then Stacy will come over with the TANs, interagency loans, or et cetera, how we address the cash flow carryover.
I'll make one comment on March 17th because it's just been confirmed. I will be out of the country doing insurance work. So I will not be here, and the city does not allow me to take a phone or a laptop overseas anymore. So
okay,
I think that's actually a flying day, but I can't remember. But I know that week I'm gone.
Okay, thanks for letting us know. Okay, so I'm done with everything.
Okay, thank you everybody for a long meeting, very informative, and I guess we're adjourned. Enjoy the cold.
2 months, you know.
He's so snarky.
Yeah, it's still.
But it's been a while. I mean,
He's offensive.
Even though I did take a few pages off, did I scribbled notes on them.
Kyle and Tom, thank you guys for saying that stuff in support of Kathy, who had to
Thank you.
take a bit. Me too.
Yeah. That
Me
was
too.
awful.
But welcome to going to city council on.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Not very often, maybe